So at this stage, I will also now share the screen so that we're able to just look at our first landing slide here. And so what this is as a group for everybody, once the slide comes up, we'll know that we are predominantly underway when it comes to sharing. So I'm just going to wait for that to kick off. Just to be aware as we go into today's meeting that we're going to have a guest presentation that's going to be poweroutage.com.us, as many of you know it. And we'll be discussing some of the other fun things, new hail studies on the horizon, drought updates, river risk, crop loss, fire loss, threats, severe weather outbreaks, the 10-day forecast as it inevitably kicks off, some pretty severe weather waves, as well as, of course, the imminent heat dome / again, we're not out of the pivots into cold temperatures. So that'll also be a main problem set as we go forward, is just having the conversation. What does it look like to have all of these temperature swings for the built environment? Who's got what going on where? What does it mean for critical infrastructure, concrete, and all the fun of that? So what I'm going to go ahead and do is turn it over to Matt, and Matt's going to go through a marvelous demo of poweroutage.us. I sent ahead a bunch of materials. If you did not get those materials, please let me know, and I will send them over to you guys. But for those of you who are new to the distribution list, this is a bi-weekly meeting. We do about half of the meeting for demos from private sector, public entities, international entities, whoever's got something of note or interest to share, a tool, a dashboard, a toolkit, a white paper, research study, whatever it is. And then the other half is going to be specifically on the weather forecast, what's coming, what to do about it, what to be aware of, and how to monitor it on your own. So with that, I'm going to stop sharing, and I will turn it over to Matt to turn on his share screen, and we'll get the ball rolling. There we go. Perfect.
Awesome. Thanks, Sunny. Really appreciate you having me on here. So I guess I usually start with the question of just to try to gauge like who's familiar with poweroutage.us. Yes, there's a rebrand happening to poweroutage.com for a lot of different reasons. Okay.
Yeah. And it's more chilly than cold.
Okay. All right, cool. Okay. So here's the general gist. Essentially, the current management group took the company over the website over about a year and a half ago. And as we learned the different industries and types of organizations who were essentially like, using the website for during very large scale outage events, we just realized, okay, it's great that the site's getting used. It's at that point in time, it was, a hobby website turned into a business, used to look like this. And essentially we just came to the conclusion that we could provide better for responding to these emergency events. So if you have followed along, you've probably noticed some changes on the website, but one change that's not front and center on the website is essentially an entire portion of the website that we've locked behind a login for a number of different reasons, and primarily because it's a ton of data to show, and showing it to the general public would be quite burdensome and expensive. And essentially what we've done is built an enhanced version of poweroutage.us. We first opened it up to all US electric utilities. So currently every single electric utility in the US, it should be every single one of them in the US, their domains, their email domains are essentially, they're whitelisted for access, on the access list. They can come up, click the login button. If you're already logged in, it'll say dashboard. Click the login button, use their utility email address, and they'll get access to what I'm about to show you. The same now goes for, I'm grouping a bunch of organizations into a couple of descriptions here, so bear with me, but essentially emergency management, emergency response organizations, federal, state, and local government organizations we're opening up access. And quite frankly, if you respond to if you serve the public and you respond to emergency events and you're not for profit, there's a pretty darn good chance we're willing to add you to this and give you this free access. Now, it is completely free, and we fund this with sponsorship. So depending on what type of organization you are, you will see a sponsor message if we have a sponsor for your type of organization, and it'll look something like what you see here at the top. So this is the company that I'm signed in as a utility user, electric utility user. And so this is the company that sponsors, and they're called Tempest Energy, and they're one of the storm contractors. Very likely, I would assume they're up in Illinois or Michigan right now. So any questions, Sunny? I don't know. Do you just normally hold questions till the end, or?
Yeah, we usually do them at the end.
Okay. All right. So I'll just go ahead and dive in. So when you hit login for the first time, you're going to be asked to go through a few steps. You have to verify your email. And if you choose to add your phone number for the alerting system, we do send text alerts as well as email alerts. If you do add your phone number, you'll have to verify that as well. So it takes a few minutes. A vast majority of organizations are already on the access list. So if you have trouble, if you log in and you don't see organizations, then that means your organization is not yet on the access list. And so it's a simple solution. You can just shoot us an email. You can shoot one directly to me. It's Matt, M-A-T-T, @poweroutage.com. If you put .us, so that'll get to me too. So let's dive in. First off, we have the ability to build custom alerts for whatever your role within your organization is. And you can set these alerts up a few different ways. The first type of alert is threshold alert. And this can be set for a county, a utility, or a state. And you're essentially saying at a percentage of meters out or at a total number of meters out, I would like to receive an alert about that outage. And from the alerts, you can click in to this area and see all of the active alerts that you have that are triggered right now. So here are the 6 that I have triggered right now due to the active outages. You can also set up alerts by address. Currently, when you're logged in, you can set up to 3 different addresses. We know there's demand for more than that. We are working on some solutions. They exist right now as a commercial product, but we are trying to work on some solutions for emergency infrastructure address level alerts at a larger scale. There's a little bit of coordination going on there. So the next thing that I would recommend doing, actually the first thing I would recommend doing, is watching this onboarding video. I'm going to go through a lot of it, but quite frankly, Jay, who is our lead on this product, does a better job than I do usually. So, all right. The main bulk of the value outside of the alerts of this dashboard is the ability to custom create data views. So this is the same type of data that you see powering the public website, but this allows you to come in and handpick only the data that's relevant to you. Maybe you only care about IOUs in a certain region. Maybe you only care about the municipalities or the co-ops, depending on what your use case is. There's a lot of different potential types of needs. You can also come in and build maps based upon state or utility or county, and it's a pretty simple process. We also have preset ones as well. I'll show you that real quick. This is a preset with the Great Lakes Mutual Aid Group, which is this list of IOUs that operate in this Great Lakes region. And customizing a dashboard as simple as going into this edit mode, clicking on map or oops, I got Teams in my way here. Give me a moment. Dragging it to wherever you'd like it to appear, and then selecting whatever it is that you would like to be represented on that map. And the same goes for creating a new table. And very soon, we are adding in the following view. So if you've been on the site today, you may have noticed we added a new map view. So if you land on the homepage, you're probably looking at this. We added a new map view called local. This is honestly, I'm super excited about this data. We take the geospatial data published by utilities across the country. We do anonymize it. There is like a little jiggle that's done to the actual location of it, so that the data that some consider sensitive is anonymized. And we're also combining that with user outage reports we essentially built a tool here for our users. Believe it or not, there were hundreds of people each outage event that were coming on the website and emailing us, we are out of power at 123 Main Street. So we built this tool. Is your power out? They click it. They enter their address. We match them to their utilities outage reporting page and try to get them over to the utility, because obviously them reporting their outage to us doesn't solve their problem. And in the meantime, though, we are crowdsourcing those locations. Same situation. We're adding an approximation of the location. We are not dropping latitude. We're not dropping outage points on people's houses or anything like that. At the moment, within this view, we have it at a 10-mile radius. We do plan to open it up to a more significant viewing area. So essentially, when you click map, there will just be another type of map here that allows for this geospatial local view. So obviously, the main use case that comes to, there's a lot of use cases, I'm sure, but the main use case that comes to mind to us, the main reason that we were working towards this for the emergency management side of things, is when we get down to the county and municipal emergency management departments, looking at a square representing your entire county is not nearly as valuable as being able to see the actual outages in the areas of the county or town or city that are currently being impacted. So all of the data that exists in this is able to be exported. And I'm really used to Teams here. So all the data is able to be exported through these buttons down here at the bottom. And you can actually also export GIFs of these time lapses. So here's the last 6 hours of the current event. You can choose from anywhere from 1 hour all the way up to 2 weeks of data. So you can, if you want to, I'm not going to do it on this call for my internet's sake here. Sunny, I'm just sitting right outside of the room that we were just in for 3 days. So you can load again up to 2 weeks, and it'll be hour by hour increments. And you can overlay weather. So right now we have the NOAA radar, Doppler radar. We also have, in this live mode, when you're in the live mode of the time lapse down here, you can add in watches and warnings from the National Weather Service. And all right, I might have too much data trying to load at one time here. But when those watches and warnings, when those shapes load over the map, you'll actually be able to hover your mouse over them and get all of the text and the metadata from the watch and the warning from the National Weather Service. So it's super helpful to just see it all in one place. And let's see here. You can also export the data that is creating the map. You can export the data as a CSV or Excel file. And I think this is super useful. Historically, the website has always been shaded based off of percentage of customers out by county or state. And in this tool, we've added the capability to toggle it over to actual customers impacted, which to me and to a lot of you all probably is a more important metric to be looking at. So the densely populated areas will obviously show up quite a bit. So you can see Chicago right now. So Cook County currently has 105,000 meters without power. And simple way to read that, somewhere between 2.2, 2.4 people per meter is the estimation, depending on who you ask. Okay. There's a few other items that you can take a look at while you're in here. We do publish white papers. Jay Schaefer, he's a PhD meteorologist who's been analyzing severe weather and its impact on the grid for a decade. He has worked on forecasting models for outage forecasting, and we're super grateful to have him on our team. And we do like post-storm analysis and white papers. And beyond that, for your organization, we can set up parameters for this daily briefing page. So for instance, if you were at a state emergency management department and you wanted a quick look at every single utility in your state, or actually let's, because obviously that kind of exists on the homepage, but let's take a region of a state. You sit over 13 counties in the state of Florida, and you want to see just those 13 counties, just the data from those 13 counties. We can create this like daily briefing thing for your organization, and it just shows like the 24-hour outage trend and which direction we're trending. And then down here, just updates that we post on the product. I always feel weird calling it a product because it's free, but it's what everyone else does. And Sunny, I think that's covering it all.
Does that come out as a PDF?
What, the
current screen, like as the daily outage briefing reporting, can that export as PDF?
We don't have an export button on here. I mean, I'm, save print screen.
Print screen's not bad. Yeah. Or snipping, I suppose. I was just curious.
No, yeah. I mean, that's a great suggestion, and I will send it to the team and add it to the list. So there is another cool thing. I'm glad you mentioned it. I'm glad you just asked that. So we do build features here. So again, we're funding the it's ongoing development. We're continually adding features. If you saw what this looked like 6 months ago versus now, the number of features that have been added. And if you saw the roadmap, oh my gosh, there's a lot of really cool stuff coming, and we base that on this is the utility user version, but we base that on the users and the features that they're requesting and this like upvoting and downvoting process of features. So when we are ready and able to build the next feature, we're looking at this list as influence for that.
You do have three noted. I will say, I think 2 questions, 3 notes. The first one being from Tim, which is a note. It says that there's anomalous data, Union County outage summary right now. 44 homes and businesses are without power in Union County, Oregon, which is 133.33% of the 33 customers tracked in the county. Last updated 7 minutes ago.
Oh man. All right. We have a Discord full of 200 to 300 people, and they just comb the site all day, helping us spot errors like that. It's pretty great. And obviously not all 200 or 300 every day, but thank you for that.
I moderate 120 interns. I can't imagine moderating a Discord of 300 people. The next one, I've already addressed the exporting the images as videos. That was GIFs, and yes, GIFs, GIFs, whatever you want to call it. I think the next one's actually Joe, and then it's on to Hank's question. So Joe, over to you. Your hand is up. Maybe. Joe, you got to come off mute. If not, I'll move on to Hank. Hank wants to know, and this is a really good question, the public safety power shutoffs, the are
Yes.
those capable of being separated out from the total number of outages? Similar to the conversation that you and I had about maintenance versus weather versus, intentional. Is there a way to differentiate, or is that just outage equals outage?
So yes, there is a way to differentiate. That's not a capability in this current data view. It is, we do differentiate that within our data set. The utilities that do the planned shutoffs, they do differentiate it in the way that when they publish the data. And when it comes to the other question that you asked around like maintenance, so some utilities they provide a reason for outage all of the time, every time, or almost every time, as soon as they're aware. And when they're not aware, it'll say, determining issue. Other utilities do not tag the events with the outage reasons. So that's a little bit harder problem to solve. To my knowledge, though, everybody who participates in PSPS shutoffs, which is when we started looking at this was only 1 or 2 states, and now it is significantly more than that. Everyone who participates in that, that we've seen so far differentiates those in their data, so we're able to as well. So
Marvelous.
that'd be a good feature request there.
Yeah, I do believe at this stage, after all of my allocations of counting for the it is most of the western half of the United States, to include Wisconsin, who have implemented it at some point or no, another after the last like 3 to 4 years. And then Joe, I want to annotate your hand is up, Senor Warble, if you would like to unmute. If not, we'll continue. But I don't want to miss your question. Your hand has been up for a minute. You can always type it in the chat as well. I will pause for one more second. Okay, so that's all of the questions that I can see that are at least spelled out in the chat.
Okay.
Are we all good on your end then? Because if so, we can move into the forecast presentation, which will also annotate some of this fun weather that is being depicted here.
Yeah, that's all I have here. I think the main point is, if you would like access to this, a vast majority of states and counties are already able to access this. We've already found, looked up what the email domains were and added them. If for some reason you have trouble with your organization, or your organization didn't fall into one of those categories and you'd like to reach out to get access, you can, again, just send me an email. I guess I'm not sure exactly how widespread this video will go, but I'll just take the emails to my personal email address, or to my email personally. So Matt, M-A-T-T @poweroutage.com, and that'll get you right to me.
Marvelous. So I do want to annotate to everybody that Matt's email will also be, and was provided in the last email, will be provided in the following email that will have the recording from today. Should you want to play that recording back, watch the demo, communicate the demo to others. We are going to go through some of the forecast information. Matt did participate in the IC's Black Sky exercise down in Florida, where we discussed the marvels of hurricanes, cyber attacks, power outages, and the litany of all of the interconnected chaos. Highly recommend Black Sky exercises for everybody. They're a ton of fun in their own right. So Matt will stick around to answer any questions. Should you have any questions in the chat, we both have to travel back from Florida. So that's where I am right now. I'm somewhere in northern Florida. Pulled over in the midst, which is why my camera's not on. Some of the things that we're going to talk about today: hail studies. So for those of you who have heard me speak, I've talked about the deadliness of hail and how it's expanding. Don't worry, it is now in the news everywhere. Australia is in the lead with some of the new studies over the last couple of weeks. These have mainly come out from a couple of different universities, so not to say that it's just Australia, but also our international partners in research, annotating that this is a major threat on the horizon. I will annotate as such that many of our states have new record-sized hail ranging anywhere between 6 to 7.5 inches. If you recall from previous presentations, our record hailstone is more than 8 inches in diameter. Still, that is our record, and that was 2010 out of South Dakota. So we will continue to keep our eyes peeled for bowling ball-sized hail, which is for the diameter. Plus, well, the diameter being 8 inches, the circumference being significantly more than 16 inches in circumference. So obviously painful. More than 2 pounds in some of these pieces of hailstones that are coming down from the sky. The larger they are, the more painful. They are also now bouncing upon impact. So to be aware, it's no longer just singular impact where they hit, they break, they fall apart. It is now twice as much damage through the bounce. You're also going to see that the damage from this is going up across the board. So this is just the surface of the earth can take notable damage over time, but our built infrastructure, as we're repaving, as we're choosing to lay down things like concrete, cement, and asphalt, be aware that when it stays hot for too long overnight, when it gets too hot during the day, when we see these heavier precipitation events, all of this is wearing away our roadways, the foundations of our buildings. There's some like litany of problems that come with that the hailstones are just exposing additional problems from. They're also taking down tree branches, and those tree branches inevitably fall onto our power lines, subsequently yielding power outages. So this is why that conversation yields at the very beginning to be aware that our NCEI graphics have also updated. These are going to be your May graphics. These just dropped today. I camped the site so very aggressively to get these stats for you so that you guys would have them first thing today. You'll annotate here where some of our most abnormal weather was. You'll notice every time we talk about this, we go through, oh, it's abnormally warm, and then somebody sees, well, Alaska was abnormally cold. Yes, absolutely. That is the pendulum swing. What does that mean for the rest of us? You're going to see a surge, and this is so fun. You're going to see a surge, another surge of temperatures, where we're going to see some states reach up to 105 to 108 degrees. And then that's right As per the usual this year, they're going to plunge right back down to 42 degrees. If that's not a very painful temperature spread for all of us entering into the summer, I don't know what is, but that will be multiple states going through that swing. And that's going to be over the next 10 days. You're going to see a surge of temperatures and then a plunge overnight. This is going to become incredibly problematic for acclimation for our crops, for our livestock, and for us as human beings. It's also going to yield greater rates of evaporation. Why? Because the only way in which to get those temperature differences is, of course, with stronger winds, which means that evaporation and the evapotranspiration from the vegetation is going to become significantly problematic. So just keep watching some of these stats and studies. We're seeing abnormally high precipitation. Hawaii, after their drought that they reported, and then subsequently that fire concern, you'll see here that they also had 260% of normal precipitation in May, and that was of course yielding some record events there, and then of course over in Alabama as well. So when we're annotating these threats, annotating fire, heat, cold, drought, snow, a late season winter snowstorm, which you may think, well gosh, that should be the end of that. Don't worry, it's not. Where we're going for the rest of these stats and studies, you'll notice here our black line, which is where we're at so far for the year for the global year-to-date temperatures, has just breached above one of our previous years, which now puts us in the top 4 for warmest years, and we are quickly approaching being in the top 3. There is still potential for us to pull ahead and be in the top 2, don't worry, and that'll be by the end of summer. As it stands right now, over the next 2 months, just anticipate we're going to finish out the year somewhere in the top 4, but definitely most likely to be in the top 3 warmest years on record. This is going to continue to fuel some of our major weather events. I've gone ahead and I've annotated some of those key notes for Idaho, Minnesota, Wisconsin, Michigan, Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia, Louisiana. If you see or see it on here, which again, the odds are pretty high, you've either set a new record or a new anomalous weather event. Oregon in here, Ohio, West Virginia, Pennsylvania, Alaska, again, Hawaii. And this is all just to annotate that no state is necessarily pulling an average month over month. So anytime somebody says the weather's not that bad at my area, it's just 1 month. The next month, your name will likely appear on this. Where we're at for tornadoes, we're in top years. We're not the top year. That would be 2011. That would be devastating. We're trying to not be 2011. However, we are still within the top years as far as just activity from January to May goes. We still have plenty of months, again, to pull into the top 3 years for the totality of the year. So when we're talking about the abnormal warming, I want to make sure that I'm focusing all of your guys' attention on the year-to-date abnormal weather. Where you're seeing this abnormal warming is the entire western half and central United States for the most part, which means the ripple effect downstream is inevitable. There's no way out of it. The amount of temperature swing that's underway. Now, I know everyone's response is, well, Sonny, we're in a El Nino. There and by hurricane season shouldn't be that bad. That's not true. I want to foot stomp that. What happened in 2010? Patricia happened in 2010. Patricia was a record-breaking tropical cyclone, strongest winds on record globally, more than 215 mile per hour sustained winds. That's a record. That was during an El Nino year. So again, just annotating this as a major concern as we go forward. Just things to keep in the back of your mind as we go through this beautiful tropical season as well as the abnormal summer. Now, when we're having the conversation about who's getting too warm, where some of these weather events are getting notably worse at, I just want to make sure that I'm also foot stomping for everybody that, of course, weather conditions will continue to propagate across every major continent. So this is to say that we have abnormal heat in, of course, North America, but we also have abnormal heat on every continent. This includes our Arctic and Antarctica, unfortunately. So I've gone ahead and I've allocated that more than 6% of the Earth's surface at a new record high temperature for the month. Now that's problematic. Now everyone says, well, that's only 6%. Again, 6% of the Earth's surface. So this doesn't necessarily touch on the water, which, is the vast majority of the Earth. So when we're talking about who's seeing abnormal temperatures, record temperatures should not be held by everybody. A record is a record, which means abnormal warmth is still very possible, but new records were set. That is a problem because 6% of the Earth's surface saw a new record temperature for a high. Now that's where we're going to see the ripple effect really kick off downstream. As we're going to go through some of these other stats and studies, just again, be aware, France reported its second warmest May. The United Kingdom's temperature was way too high, where they're seeing their third warmest May on record. England had its second warmest. Wales had its third warmest. Maximum temperatures were, of course, notably higher. Japan. All of these are just annotated in here so that you can be aware this isn't one state, one county, one country. This is everybody's reporting a problem. The problem is it's staying warm for too long. It's getting too dry. This is a problem for vegetation, for fire, and of course it amplifies our flooding concerns. Now, What are we talking about for the forecast? So this is where I really want to foot stomp. We're going to talk a little bit about tropical cyclones. Now, you guys know I love and I hate our cyclone maps. Cyclone maps are helpful when you're talking about multiple basins simultaneously, which is what we're doing. We have a concern over by Guam and the Northern Marianas Islands. All models are picking up on the tropical mass that is over there, that it's making its way slowly but surely to congeal into a beautiful tropical system of some form. Now, a couple of models are saying this is going to be a significant storm. And that's going to be predominantly focused on the GFS model, which is also going to be like our ICON, which is Germany's model, and the KMA, which is a little bit more annotated. So when we're looking at the Korean model, the Germany model, and the GFS, and we're watching for severe impacts to the Northern Marianas Islands, the other side is going to be the European, the UK Met, and some of the Canadian model, all annotating that it's going to stay a little bit weaker, passing Guam and Saipan, stay a little bit further to the south, and strengthen closer to Taiwan. So that's going to be your main nugget of information as we're focused over there, because that area is still in sensitive recovery mode from Super Typhoon Sinlaku when that crossed through the region. We have another tropical cyclone, somewhat near-ish, this middle basin area between Hawaii and Mexico. We're not expecting anything from that. So, unless you have one of the islands closer to Mexico, this isn't really a concern for you. Let that one go for now as far as attention goes. Paying attention over in our Gulf, which I mentioned at the very beginning of our call, we do have a tropical area of development annotated on the National Hurricane Center's page. Now, where is that going? What is it doing? I want to annotate that most of our models have that hugging coastline in the Gulf, moving into Mexico's mountains, thereby mostly falling apart, causing some additional rainfall for the Victoria area to the border. But what does that look like? Where is it? Where's it going? Why is it going? Just to annotate, there's a large area of instability. Now, when we're looking at the severe weather event between the upper Midwest and the Great Lakes region trailing back, the main reason we're looking over in that region as to why our tropical cyclone is or is not going to form is because that's going to kick off a Texas low. Now, why do we care about Texas lows when we're talking about tropical systems? Storm events in Texas, when they form up, they expand pretty rapidly. They create a trailing frontal boundary that goes from the Great Lakes all the way through Texas. It's an area of instability and lift. Yes, causes tornadoes, problems for flights, severe winds, weather, all this problem for Texas, Louisiana, Arkansas, that whole region in general. However, when it moves over the Gulf, it creates an area of amplified shear because it is an area of just churning, and that's going to rip apart a lot of things. It'll pull up a lot of that moisture, which is a problem, fueling severe weather outbreaks and flash flooding concerns, absolutely, but it will not allow for that storm to develop to its full potential. So the good news there, the bad news, is it will end up amplifying. It'll still impact us overall. What does this look like in the upper levels? Now, why do we pay attention to the upper level models? 700 and 500 millibars is what I want you guys to focus on this summer when we're having tropical cyclone discussions. Where is it going? Why is it going? Do not come to me and say, I see a tropical cyclone, and the last time a tropical cyclone formed in this basin at this time, it made landfall in Florida. That's not a pertinent discussion to have. The discussion isn't the last time there was a cyclone here. It's what is the current steering flow? And you're going to find that so very easily on Null School at the 500 and 700 millibar tab. Now, I've gone ahead and I've left that tab open over here in the corner. What you're going to do is you're just going to go to nullschool.com. You're going to go to 500 and 700. You can leave it on winds. You can play around with the projection models. I don't really care which model you look at as far as source goes. You're going to prog it forward a couple of days by just pressing these little arrows, and you'll get a general understanding of where our upper level systems are. These are our main frontal boundaries. Remember, hurricanes can't jump fronts. Fronts own hurricanes. Hurricanes are very shallow systems. But you'll notice that the steering flow is going to be this high pressure that's located over here in the Atlantic, and that's wrapping everything around, throwing it towards Mexico at the same time that we're having a frontal boundary develop over Texas, which means the two of these will rip it apart. They'll take each a share of the tropical cyclone. We are not expecting for it to develop too much. It's also going to be dropping into an area of abnormally cold water, and that is, again, another positive. Things to keep in the back of your mind. Should that system have moved over one of these eddies that is warmer, it would have grown. That is, there's no way around that. It would love to be over the warmer water. However, thankfully, that bay area is significantly colder than usual. And that's where it's going to be moving. And then by the time that it gets closer to this warmer water, it'll already have been ripped apart by the upper level wind shear effects. So positive, we don't have to pay too much attention. Negative, the models are already annotating an overactive basin. That should be of concern for everybody. just because of that. Now, if you're like, how do I visualize this? What does that look like as far as a major event goes? I've gone ahead and I've included the loops here for you guys. Some of you are going to see the loop a little bit better than other people because, again, internet is internet. However, just to annotate, it does form. It does have a core low. It could be labeled as a tropical depression up to a tropical storm. That really depends on the core storm that develops over the water. Right now, it's obviously, as you just saw through satellite imagery, over land, thereby facing friction. Once these storms lose friction, they have a tendency of strengthening rapidly despite the colder water. So we're going to be paying attention to that just for whether or not it takes a name off the list. That's the only thing I care about. I don't care too much about where these winds are slamming into the Texas-Mexico border. Our Border Patrol people in that area should be aware. Amplified thunderstorms, very likely Sunday into Monday. But you'll notice there's Friday, there's where it forms, moves up into the area Saturday. That wave that's on that back end of that is Saturday into Sunday's problem. Then a secondary pulse kills it off. What does that look like as far as precipitation goes? Here's a beautiful radar return. Again, these are all on weathermodels.com. You can play around on there. You can play around on Tropical Tidbits. The data is the data. All weather models that are of use are free. If you're paying for a weather model, you're only paying for either early access or some prettier overlays. But to say that you can get all this information absolutely 100% for free, you don't need to spend money to access any of this. So we're just seeing that there is indeed churning in the Gulf. That is 100% a given. It is 100% a given that there's going to be precipitation and wind. All of that is a given. There's no way around that conversation. Again, why do we look at the longer term GFS? Now, the GFS has a tendency, it's a warm core biased system. What that means as a model is that it will sometimes lie to you and say everyone dies at the end of the story. It is way more aggressive. However, in the long-term modeling, what does it annotate that I'm concerned about? It annotates at the very, very end of this, going into the 22nd, 23rd, that there is some activity that starts in the Caribbean. And then by the 26th, 27th, it has, that's right, a tropical cyclone making it through the warmest parts of the Caribbean, going over Cuba and into the Gulf. What does that mean? That means just that we need to be having the conversation. What would it look like at the end of the month to have a tropical cyclone make its way from the Caribbean into the Gulf? I want you guys to just pay attention to that in the long-term forecast. Do not do anything outside of be aware. Just watch the models as the models update, see if it holds on to it. Moving on to more realistic conversations about concerns. Elephant Butte's at 8% full as far as the reservoir goes. That's in New Mexico. Looking at Lake Powell, 23% full. We're very close to Lake Powell being in the teens. I'm not excited about that. It's lower than it was on any other record. 2022, this is worse. If you haven't paid attention to this, the previous low in 2022 was when it got to 1040. We're right now capable of reaching 1036. So again, when we're having the conversations of where Lake Mead's at versus Lake Powell is notably worse than we want it to be. Lake Mead is devastatingly not doing great. There's a lot of annotation of conversation here. Colorado, South Dakota aren't doing well. New Mexico, Utah aren't doing well. We're losing surface water rapidly. The evaporative trend is only going to get worse. Triple-digit temperatures are in the forecast. They are expected to stick around for a lot longer than we would like to see. The wind is going to get worse. There's no way around that. If a fire kicks off in any of these basins, some of the reservoirs are not going to be able to give water for firefighting activity. That's just something you're going to need to think about. We had this issue in New Mexico with the Las Vegas fires. If you recall, their reservoirs were too low for them to be able to allocate using the water from those reservoirs. And then the argument was, can we pull from private sector? Now, we are expecting for the Four Corners to see some notable precipitation from the monsoon, positive. Negative, El Nino may end up curbing some of that just because our storms typically enter from that latitude. So that's going to be very spotty, hit or miss. It's also going to be a lot heavier than we're ready for. So watching where that soil injection well is at, we're also expecting drought to get worse over Virginia. So having the conversation about data centers, having conversation about emergency drought declaration for the Potomac, also a major concern. Other areas of concern, essentially everywhere else that's not turning green-ish like army colors. Just imagine everywhere else is a concern and we need to be talking about what would it look like if that concern lasts through the rest of the year. Now, again, annotating where we're at with Lake Mead, Lake Powell against the last 5 years. I've gone ahead and I've drawn those graphics for you guys so that you can balance point those. We are watching the West for loss in hydro. Yes. We're watching the West for impacts to cattle. Yes. We're watching the West for impacts to fruits, vegetables, as well as, of course, the inevitability of the have and have not argument. Who gets what when it comes to the Colorado River in totality. So looking at the Missouri River Basin, don't worry, you guys aren't doing any better on the other side of the U.S. We are having a conversation about the 6 major hydropower dams. We are expecting that the runoff is going to be in the top 15, lowest runoff in the record from 1898 to now. Not doing as bad as the West. That's the only positive I've got there. At least the severe storms have continued to give water to the lower part of the basin. The upper part of the basin, notably drier. Obviously, we just talked about the Dakotas taking a hit from drought. So this is going to continue to be a conversation specifically for Big Bend. While Big Bend is doing well now, it will not do well for the rest of the season. This is an inevitability because El Nino brings our storms further to the south, means that they won't get as much rainfall as we go forward. Most of the storms will bypass that portion of the northern basin. So just things to keep in the back of your mind. We are expecting for power plants in that area to be about 20% lower in the totality of production. So as we go forward, other conversations on the horizon is, of course, the Missouri River Basin, and just being able to have the conversation about where we're expecting to see the system storage kind of kick off problematic-wise. 2026, obviously setting some new records as far as notably lower system storage. Now, that's the entire system. Some parts of the system are doing better than others. Keep that in the back of your mind. I'm not saying everybody dies at the end of the story. I'm just saying we're not doing great. This is what it looks like for our stream flow for the low flow map. Again, everyone's got some level of pain. Hawaii's finally back out of the red again, but they fluctuate between too much water and not enough water most aggressively. Again, think of them as a canary in the coal mine. Looking over at Puerto Rico, Puerto Rico's not doing great with their stream flows, as is a good chunk of the U.S. Really concerned about the Carolinas through the Virginia area. Should we see a fire ignition? That fire ignition could be anything from a lightning strike to a campfire, given that we're going into camping season in this region. Luckily, it's either been too hot, too rainy, or too cold for people to really be outside a whole lot. However, as we go forward, there's going to be major temperature swings. We're likely to see people go out this summer. So that's a great area of concern, as is the Grand Coulee Dam and the subsequent rivers for the Pacific Northwest, just due to the amount of evaporative demand likely to kick off there. Nebraska's cattle producers are notably worried about feed. That's going to be a major concern. Again, we've already lost a lot of cattle over the last couple of years. You'll notice beef prices are finally starting to reflect that. That's not going away anytime soon. Our inventory has taken a massive hit. Imports have taken a massive hit. Obviously, tariffs contribute to that in their own way, shape, or form. So I've just included some of the stats and studies from this beautiful summary that gets put out every month. I recommend that you guys sign up for these. I send them out in the emails. You're welcome to get your own facts from there. This is just some of the key highlights, things to be aware of. The bodies of water in South Carolina. This is a really fun stat. Fell by 75% over the last couple of months. So we're really watching what's going on again with wheat. So if you thought that the war was bad when we first reported about the war with Ukraine and Russia and the impact because Russia and Ukraine together produced about a third of the global wheat inventory, then Canada caught fire. Canada is also a major producer of wheat. And then that's right, the U.S., our winter wheat has taken a massive hit from drought. We have had fires in the areas of our major breadbasket, and we're expecting for it to get worse across the board just because it's impossible to plant in some of these conditions. Therein by, I expect wheat to also take a hit as we go forward. That's just a general conversation you need to be having in the back of your head. Other sides of the house, what's the forecast hold as far as pain points for us? Just various weather problems. There's no quick and easy answer. Again, when we're talking about the next couple of days, you'll notice we have an abnormal cold pocket. Should that be there? No, but it's going to be there. We're going to go from these high temperatures to these plunges in cold. Everyone's going to be confused. There's going to be accusations of the weather machine. There's no escaping that. There's going to be accusations of, intentional dismay when it comes to tornadic activity, hail, lightning, because it loves temperature swings. So the more the temperature swings appear in the forecast, the more aggressive the severe weather is going to be. You're going to see severe weather be exhaustive at the end of the season. Just keep that in mind. Again, really watching Hawaii and Puerto Rico because both of them were drier than normal. Hawaii saw less than 50% of its normal precipitation just in the last couple of weeks. Puerto Rico has also seen a notable loss. They've got a precipitation shortfall by 6 inches. So while Hawaii had a really good 1 month, they immediately lost all of it. So when we're having the conversation, be aware. If you say the phrase, we really need this rain, we're missing X many months, you're kind of putting it out there that you want all X many months in one single rainfall event. That's essentially what's happening for everybody. Now, our tornadic activity has been notably high. Is it record high? No, but it's up there. And it is painful. Some of the months are producing new records, but the totality of from the beginning of the year to now, are we in a full-blown record? Not necessarily. So where are we going in the future? Obviously, it's going to get a lot hotter from the west first. We're really watching the Four Corners, specifically New Mexico, for flooding risks just from the monsoon. Again, it's not going to fall where it needs to fall. That's the bigger conversations, the bigger pain point. Don't worry, this is happening in China and India as well. Iran is right now in a major heat wave. We're expecting 45 to 50 degrees Celsius temperatures there. They also just recently, you may have seen in the news, 2 of the reservoirs have been blown up. So that's going to be notably problematic because they rely very heavily on groundwater, really heavily on surface water because their groundwater is very limited in that region. So we're running into a bigger issue. What does it look like to be in a heat wave like that with limited access to water? As we go forward in that conversation, be aware that migration is a big thing that happens during these kinds of major events. It's really going to come down to the have and have-nots in that region. China and India have finally just gotten out of their heat wave. The only way out of a heat wave, you all remember me saying this, the only way out of a heat dome, which is what causes your heat waves, is with violence. That's going to be violent weather. That's torrential downpours damaging severe weather events. So both of them got floods. This is going to be the case as we go into this summer. Be aware, if you are in a heat dome, the only way out of a heat dome is with pain. They will never just exit on their own. They only exit with aggression. Our evaporative demand. Why do we look at evaporative demand over there on the right? Because it pulls moisture out of the trees, out of the soil, out of the plants. What does that do? Obviously makes concerns for wildfires. Sure, yeah, get that. However, the other side of the house makes the branches more brittle, which means the next storm that goes through doesn't need to be a record-breaking storm. It just needs to blow it all, and these branches are coming down a lot more aggressively. So in the Ohio, Pennsylvania, West Virginia, the Tennessee-Kentucky River Basin, the Virginia and North Carolina area, all of these are major concerns for me going forward for evaporative demand impacts. Other side of the house, drought and surface water conditions mean that we're losing vegetation rapidly in the west, which means front range fire is likely to get worse. Now, where are we at with the fire season so far? What's the point in having this conversation? This year is the most active January to June in the last decade. It doesn't feel like that for a lot of people who aren't one of the states on fire. It doesn't feel like a record-breaking year, but it is. So when we're at 31,500 wildfires, which is the most that have occurred in this period of time in the last decade, have burned over 2.5 million acres since the start of the year. This is above, obviously, any other year because that's the record. The 10-year average is only 22,400 fires and 1.2 million acres burned, which is half. So we are double the 10-year average for this period of time. Our areas with large fires are Alaska, despite having just had a colder than usual and wetter area of time for the last month. We have California, Florida, Ohio, and North Carolina. Florida cannot escape the pain of these fires. It is unfortunate. They also just had a major vehicle fire on the 95, which I passed not too long ago. An extreme heat watch is in effect for Portland, Oregon today. Temperatures are going to reach triple digits. Humidity, 80%. 80% humidity, triple digits. That is pain. That is pain for everybody. Nobody likes that. That is dangerous heat for everyone. Freeze watches. Sorry, I'm not trying to crack up about this, but I want to annotate triple digit temperatures, humidity, 80%, death concerns from that. However, the other side of Oregon, freeze watch in effect. I want to annotate that that shouldn't be in one state. That one state should not have 100 plus degrees, 80% humidity, death risk. And then the other side of the state, freeze conditions. So again, annotating that these swings in temperature are deadly in and of themselves. They're also making it impossible to acclimate. The damage to infrastructure cannot be understated. Concrete does not like going through freeze-thaw cycles this aggressively. It becomes brittle, it cracks, it breaks, it warps. So we are watching our metal and our concrete from impacts from this in the built environment as we go forward. Evaporative demand continues to rise. We are watching for freeze watches in quite a few different places, Oregon, Nevada, Idaho. Inevitably, these dislodge. When your cold dislodges, it moves. When it moves into the Central Plains and then over to the Great Lakes, thus the forecast. Where are we at with our severe weather? So that top left graphic is going to be today, which obviously, as we saw with the power outages, most notably over the Great Lakes. And then going into Saturday, you'll notice it's moved a little bit further to the south. It's not one boundary. The other boundary exits. It's the next boundary right behind it, picks up all that energy and just pushes it a little further to the south. What are we expecting for flood concerns? I'm not as worried about the Iowa to Michigan area for flood as I am for the Oklahoma, Kansas, Missouri area for flood. So again, annotating, we are expecting for that area to see notable precipitation. Now, when we're looking at the probabilistic precipitation portal, I don't love that, we are annotating that this is what the models pick up from sky to surface. This does not annotate severe thunderstorm collapse. What does it look like days 1 through 7? From now to the 18th, this is pain for quite a few different areas. You'll remember we talked about this as a concern for parts of Florida from the other week. So looking forward in the next couple of days, really focused on days 5, 6, 7 for the amount of impact that we're likely to see to the Gulf states. Again, that's a combo effect. That's both the severe weather coming from the north and the amount of instability coming in from the Gulf. So here's your forecast. When you guys get the slides, you can play around with these. These are the prog charts. Prog charts just show the progression of your frontal boundaries. That's the word prog, is progression. So as you go forward, you'll see the frontal boundary that causes today's severe weather exits over the Appalachian Mountains, causes some severe weather concerns for tomorrow for the mid-Atlantic, exits out and over, and then we have our next system, which is twice as long, picks up twice as much energy, and creates a large area of instability and heavy rainfall that'll exceed all the way from the Canada border back through Texas. And that'll camp there starting on Sunday and just going through essentially Thursday of the coming week, if not a little bit longer. So just be aware, we're really having the conversation a little bit further forward. Severe weather abounds within that boundary. So here are all of the days of the most notable severe weather, what states play what games. Again, annotating tonight, severe weather concern is on the back end of the current storm system as it's already formed. Saturday, really watching that one area I just annotated, Texas, Oklahoma, Arkansas to Missouri. And then, of course, going into Wednesday, you're going to see another widespread area of the beginning of the instability, which will feed Thursday's severe weather outbreak, which will be the worst of the last 2 weeks. So where are we at in the forecast? Just again, annotating that you can always balance the European and the GFS against each other. They probably show some pretty similar characteristics. So this is just to annotate how things are moving, where they're coming from. You can see that they're coming from the northwest, pushing down towards the southeast. That creates that bow wave. Just wanted to make sure that you all had access to the visual of the amount of instability that comes into the Gulf from the amount of storms that are interacting there. So you'll see the first pulse, the second pulse, and then you'll see this beautiful third pulse there. And so just watching the Gulf for instability, thunderstorm, and the pulse towards Texas. So what are we looking at with these temperature swings? Temperature swings going to be notably painful just in the sense of abnormality. Should not be this hot, should not be this cold. It's back and forth while we say, well, it's been hot in recent years. Yes. So imagine that, but following it with a significant plunge in cold means that everyone's going to complain about temperatures more. Because one, again, we're not going to acclimate. Two, humidity content, the water vapor, makes it far more noticeable, these temperature swings. If you've ever been in a dampened environment, you feel the cold more, you feel the heat more. This is going to be the conversation as we go forward. Your first responders are going to suffer physically, and that is the end of the presentation deck as I've got it. So I did want to just make sure that all of you are aware we are tracking the tropical cyclone potentials across the board, and I'm always willing to have questions about that. So I want to make sure that I've got time for any questions. I see there's quite a bit in the chat, but I will go ahead and stop the recording to address anything in the chat. So 1 second.